Hey, Karita Griffith Walker here, and we are talking about reflections on our tap choreography, our reflections on our tap choreography. So, what I want us to talk about today is the educational aspect of our choreography as tap teachers. Now, in the last session that we did, we looked at the idea of, just us being creative people and do we like our work? Just purely with the creative choreographer scarf on, do we like our work? Just that. This time I want us to put the educational hat on it as well and ask ourselves some deeper questions about the educational aspect of our choreography. And this is a pivotal question, because we know, of course, we are not just choreographers, right? There's plenty of people out there who are just choreographers, and you choreograph for professionals, and you get to fulfill your whole vision with people that you hire and you pay and all of those things, and they better be able to do what you put out there, right? I've been in that situation a lot. Many of you have been in that situation. And that's different, right? When you're finding people who can do, your highest level of vision. But we're educators, right? Our main job is to teach. And so because we spend so much time on choreography, whether it's class combos or it's performance pieces or one performance piece for the year, that we make sure that our choreography time is educational time, right? We want to be sure that our choreography time is educational time as tap teachers, right? There's a lot of things that our students learn in any dance class, but we want to make sure that the things that they can learn uniquely in tap class, they are being included significantly in our choreographic pursuits. I just made that up. So if you can imagine, if you will, even this idea of cotton candy, right? So there's this idea of cotton candy on one hand, and you taste it and you're like, and but you're still hungry when you're done, right? It's like it's tasty and you like it, but you haven't been nourished by it. Right? You haven't been nourished by it. So let's have that on one extreme. And on the other extreme, we have the most nutritious plate you can imagine. Right? I can just tell you personally, really quickly, that in the past few months, I have had a lot of health issues, ups and downs, and I looked very seriously at my diet as part of it. I'm doing well, but I definitely reevaluated my diet as a part of this, and I can tell you that I ate the vegetables, but nowhere near the serving sizes that they're supposed to be. Like if you actually cook a cup of broccoli, and cook broccoli and put a cup of broccoli, like an actual measuring cup of broccoli, and you put that on your plate and you see that proportion, it's a lot more than I was eating. I was eating half, maybe a serving. But I'm a full grown person. So it's oh, these are actual serving sizes of vegetables. Let me get on board. Let me get my children on board while they're little, right? So in the same spirit, with our students, from the very beginning, we want to make sure that we're giving them the nutritiousness of our tap dance education, right? The gift of this style that creates rhythm and music, right? That is one of the beautiful things about this style. Now, the cool thing I think about tap dance, just continuing with the food thing for a second, is that we can use it in the way of the cruciferous vegetables and the spinach and all of that kind of stuff, and have those kinds of nutritional aspects to it in terms of education. But it's also, when you get into the rhythms and you get into the grooves and all of that, it is literally the best comfort food ever. It is the gooeyest, best mac and cheese that your grandma ever made, so it's that too. And I think that tap dance really has that full plate, and we want to make sure that we're giving that to our students, right? So if we think about those two perspectives, those two ends of the spectrum, your most nutritious plate, half of it is vegetables, the other half is, nuts and beans and fish, whatever you got on it. And the other half, on the other side of the spectrum is cotton candy, where you eat it, it's tasty, yumma for that moment. And then after that moment, you're still hungry and your body isn't nourished, right? So where does our choreography fit on that spectrum? Are we closer to the cotton candy side? Are we closer to the other side? So I think that's just one way to think about it, and to just remind myself that I need to eat some more food. So here's a few questions that you can use to ask yourself and like dig deeper into this topic. So with this idea of like, okay, was my choreography this year, whether it's class combos or performance, was it really educational for the students, or was it a little more on the cotton candy side? One, what intentional gems, learning lessons did I put into the choreography in advance? Did I have my teaching goals and say, okay, of these teaching goals, here's all of this stuff that I can put for my teaching goals that I'm just using in technique time, etc., for this next year into the choreography so that it is being reinforced over there, right? So if you look at your teaching goals and you're like, here are my goals for musicality. Here are my goals for timing and tempo management. Here are my goals for steps. Here's, these different goals. And then, so based on these goals, I'm going to do this choreography. I'm going to choose this kind of song. And how much of it was intentional that way with your choreography. Then I would ask you, how many more, as you're doing the choreography, as you're bringing it to life with the students, how many more teachable moments and deeper lessons did you identify within the work that you hadn't even anticipated? Right? So even if you're saying, let's say that you taught your students even something like the shim sham or the Cole stroll, walk around. Let's say you taught them something like that, classic piece, BS course. Like you're like, oh, I'm bringing this particular piece to my students right now because yes, it would be nice for them to learn the shim sham, but here's some deeper lessons inside of it that I can bring out, extract to teach my students. Go, whoa, there's a lot of lessons inside of this walk around, right? There's a lot of lessons inside of this shim sham or inside of this BS course. And I can pull those things out and extract those things as I'm going to even make make the meaning more deep, make it more teachable, more educational, more rich, as opposed to like, well, we learned the shim sham, it's around National Tap Dance Day. We should learn the shim sham. We did it. They know it, right? I did it, they did it, I did it, they did it. Great. Right? So there's like that kind of teaching. But if we go, oh, like here's some other deeper lessons that tie to my goals. Here's something I've been trying to teach them all year. Right? Here's something that I can tie to that. Right? So I want us to think about it in that way. Now, the challenge sometimes that I've seen teachers have is that you spend so much time trying to get the students to just execute that we miss on the extra teachable moments. I've seen it. Listen, I've been there myself as a dance teacher, and just like as a parent, as a mother. It's like it's like, oh, I missed that moment because I was in the hullabaloo of I can't find my sock, and like all the other things that you have when you're dealing with little kids. But it's like, oh, I missed this teachable moment that and it's hard when you're in a kind of hectic state to identify those moments, right? And so what I've seen with tap teachers sometimes is the struggle of like, I'm just trying to get them to get it. I'm demonstrating so much. I spend so much time teaching it, just like here's what it is, that I don't have time to dig for more. Right. So if that's something that you're dealing with, I want you to reflect deeply about that. And I think that that's something that you can solve. That is solvable issues. It's not something that you just have to live with because tap, everything takes so long to teach. Tap is more intricate and it takes longer to teach a couple of bars than maybe it does in a jazz class. But it still doesn't have to take forever to teach. I've seen many teachers inside of my tap teacher training program that it is like, you can teach that faster and here's how. Right? You can get your students to understand it faster, and here's how, right? And so there's definitely those possibilities out there for you to open up your time and to free your mental space. Because if you don't have your mental space free, then you're missing out on opportunities. If you're demonstrating all the time, I've said this many times, if you're demonstrating all the time, then you're missing out on teachable moments in the class. Right? So inside of my tap teacher training program, I have a framework of like thinking about how you demonstrate, how you instruct, how you coach. and see it like a triangle in my head. And so many times we spend so much time on demonstrating that we don't use our other tools of communication to help our students to learn, right? So we work on those other tools so that you can demonstrate less and then be able to really stand back, look, and listen to your students so that you can get more out of them in less time, right? So I want to make sure that when it comes to your choreography, that you are able to dig in and have a fresh synapse fire, like when you see something, it's like, oh, this is a good teaching moment. Oh, teachable moment. Oh, teachable moment. And identify even more of those inside of the choreography that you set or that you are giving to your students. Right. So that's the second question. Did I identify more teachable moments, in ways that I could draw towards my lesson plans or my teaching goals or my curriculum, whatever that is. And again, I want to make sure that those are holistic things, that those things are very much wrapped around musicality, rhythm, and timing, right? That's the foundation of things. Steps are steps. Steps are steps, but those steps, the purpose of them is to create rhythm and music. And so if we aren't driving towards that all the time, then we are missing out on this huge opportunity that we have in tap dance to do this very unique and special thing that audiences truly, truly love. Right? So that was the second question. Now, the third question is, how did my students grow inside of this piece? How do my students grow? So if you're looking at a whole year, like we've been working on this piece all season, you look back at it and say, can you identify, articulate beyond like they got better or they executed the piece, but like here are the ways that they improved. So when you're now at this point of whether you're done or you're almost done, that you can look back at the piece and say, here are the ways that they grew towards those teaching goals that I set from the beginning, towards other ones that I evolved over time, and that I can articulate ways that they got better, and improved their technique, improved their understanding of musicality, improved these other things, that totally are in line with my teaching goals. I got closer to my teaching goals because of this piece of choreography. You can articulate that my students did this, they got here, they got here, they got here, right? I think it's hard, if we're just saying like, well, they got better. Yeah, but for us as educators, I want us to be able to have more articulation behind that for a lot of reasons. But one, we also want to be able to articulate the value of what our students are learning to their parents, or if you're talking to adults, to be able to say it to them so that they are, again, finding different ways to feel the value of what they're accomplishing in your classes. This is another reason that they come back. It's another reason they come back, right? Wow, they really grew a lot in this class, and here's how. Right. So anytime I've had parents come in to like watch the 10-year-olds, like for that visitor day or something like that, or you do an open house, I like to really be able to talk through specifics about, how they've grown or whatever. If somebody comes to me and, they're not happy with, where their kid is standing in the formations, I can articulate very clearly, you know what I mean? Like technique things, standards that I've set, this is how I'm working with it, etc. And be very specific when I'm giving that feedback, right? So it's not just, like, well, she has her wings like everybody else. Why isn't she in the front? Don't we love that question, right? So it's like, well, here's all the rest of it, right? Let's talk about, tempo. Let's talk about timing. Let's talk about understanding of rhythm patterns. Let's talk about, these are the rhythm patterns we've been working on, and this is where your student is with them. This is how your student has grown. This is where your student is struggling. And here's the specific tools that I've helped her to, given her to improve. Yes. And they've either done that or they haven't done that. And here's some possible reasons why. Right? So that we can be specific in that. We want to be able to communicate the value of what we do. Right? It's one of the reasons why people pay us, right? For those of us that are doing, paid classes, or for people that are giving free classes. It's one of the reasons why people come back, because they feel like they're growing and it's being communicated to them. Right? So it's one thing to add value, but it's another thing to be able to communicate that value. And if we don't articulate what it is that we're offering, then it's hard for people to sometimes feel the value of it. And then we go, well, we don't need tap. We need to focus on the serious stuff. And then people start to look at tap like it's cotton candy, right? We're back to like the food thing. Yes. So let's get on to the ballet. Let's get on to the serious stuff. Let's get on to, the contemporary and all the other stuff, right? We've got to be able to articulate our goals, how we're helping our students get there. And when our students are growing and they're growing inside of a piece, to really be able to articulate that to the studio directors, if we're not the director, to the audiences, to everybody, to the students themselves, so that they're like, I'm growing in here, right? That they feel that, but they can also even start to learn how to articulate that themselves. So those are the 3 questions. I do have a little story I can tell you, just to go along with this. This one's kind of funky. Okay, so I was early in my teaching career and I was over choreographing a fair amount. I was making it a little too complicated for these intermediate children, and they were out there struggling. And so we had one of those show days, like where different classes come in and show. Okay, you guys are going to show your jazz piece. You guys are going to show your your ballet piece. You guys are going to show this. You're going to show this. And so I show my pieces that are like hot mess. I got Bambi's on ice out there because they barely know the choreography, let alone are the formations clean, any of the rest of that stuff. So I'm sweating a little bit because I'm like, oh, this stuff is rough. I really overdid it on these students and I overwhelmed them. So now here comes a person who is teaching ballet. And this person comes in with the ballet pieces, and the ballet pieces are full of poses and like tableaus, formations, cannons. You go, you go, you go, but like repeating at the different levels. Like, so I saw a couple of the pieces of, this ballet teacher throughout the day, because we're doing the show and tell all afternoon. And it was a lot of like posing and like tableaus and cannons. Super clean. Everybody knew what to do. Everybody knew where to go. And I was like embarrassed. I was like, wow, she really put up some really clean stuff. My kids are all over the place. I was like, ugh. Now, cut to 2 years later. No, even a year later, I come back, I see some of the same students again, show and tell the next year. I've like been improving, like brought the choreography down to earth, and brought the choreography back down to earth. And so my students have improved. I'm feeling a little bit better about myself this year. In comes the ballet teacher with these ballet pieces and some of the same students from the year before. And they were doing, guess what? More poses, more tableaus, more cannons of repeating phrases. I was like, huh, they've done nothing different, like a pirouette, but they did a pirouette the year before. But I was like, nothing changed. Nothing changed, right? There's more to that story, but what I could see is that I didn't see, I was like, where's the growth from year to year? Where's the growth year to year? The choreography played it safe and didn't stretch the students at all. And I don't know what kind of pedagogy the teacher was using, what they were able to do in class. But for me as an audience member, and if I'm looking at this and if it's my kid that I put into the class, I go, I've seen no difference between this year and the year before. So why are we continuing? Where's the growth here? Yeah, where's the growth here? So you can see where it's like, in that sense, the choreography didn't really serve, like it wasn't lifting the students up. It was like the choreographer was like, I'm going to keep them clean, keep them in this box, and that way that they're confident on stage, but it's also extremely safe, and it didn't grow towards any new goals. Right? So I understand that the idea of like wanting them to be confident on stage, but if they're not growing from year to year, if it all kind of feels the same, it's like, it's a little rough, right? So I just want us to keep finding that balance of like pushing the students inside the choreography. Of course, they need to have confidence with it, and we lead them to that with our pedagogy. Yeah, that's what our pedagogy is there, is to help them to grow, support every student to be able to grow, right? So kind of a long story, but related story. So I hope that is something that adds to the conversation. So just going back to the top. So we're thinking about, is my choreography time educational time? In tap dance, is my choreography time educational time? So thinking, one, what intentional things did I put into this choreography, my song choice, whatever? What are all the things that I put into the choreography in advance, strategically saying these are things that are going to help move towards my teaching goals? Two, did I find additional teachable moments inside of the choreography as we're working? Did I find that, right? Then three, can you articulate This is how my students grew inside this piece. This is how they grew toward the teaching goals, whether they met them or not, right? Every year is a little different, and Zoom and all of this other stuff. But this is how they grew towards the teaching goals inside the choreography. And the choreography was a vehicle, one of the vehicles for that growth. We just spend so much time on it that we really have to make sure that that choreography time is truly educational time and serves their overall growth and development, as well as, help lets them to shine on stage. Okay, and we want them to be feeling that confidence and feeling that growth over time. These are things that keep them coming back to our classes year after year after year. That's all I got for today. Feel free to jump into the comments. Let me know where you are in this process. Feel free to share your reflections or deeper questions. If you have other perspectives, I would love to hear them. All right, have a wonderful, wonderful day.